right, it's Monday, which means it's time for our weekly box office report, brought to you by our friends at AMC Theaters. Coming in at number one is Star Wars The Force Awakens, taking in over $88.3 million, setting a new record for a movie in its third weekend. Coming in second spot is the Will Ferrell, Mark Wahlberg comedy Daddy's Home, making $29 million. And the number three spot is the Quentin Tarantino film The Hateful Eight, making $16.2 million. And the number four position is the Tina Fey, Amy Poehler comedy Sisters, making $12.6 million. And rounding out the top five is Alvin and the Chipmunks, making $11.8 million. John, what stands out to you about this week's box office report?
Well, Star Wars bulldozes another record, biggest third weekend in history. Not sure, though, that it will beat the biggest fourth weekend in history, because if Star Wars keeps dropping at the rate it's dropping, remember Avatar did a strange thing where it was going up from week to week. So I mean, it's got to beat, I think, $50 million next week to beat the fourth week record. I'm not sure it will, but let's hang in there and see what happens. Daddy's Home beating The Hateful Eight. I mean, remember we were doing our box office predictions and we all forgot about Hateful Eight was going wide. It's like, oh, so we all changed it. We said, all of us said Hateful Eight will be number two. No, Daddy's Home held strong, only dropped 25%, which is impressive. Again, you look at Sisters, again, in its third weekend, only dropped 11% more, which is crazy. It made $12 million in its third weekend. I think it made $13 million in its first weekend or something strange like that. And Alvin and the Chipmunks also only dropping another 10%. So all these films hanging in there, hanging all strong. It was just a really good weekend. Anyways, Schnupp, what stands out to you?
Well, for me, it's like happy that I've seen 4 of the 5 top films, and I'll never see Road Trip, which is the weird aberration of these 5. Like, why is that still sticking around? Come on, kids. You really want to see Road Trip? Anyway, I think, Star Wars obviously absorbing all the money. I got a chance to see Daddy's Home, like we talked about. It's really funny. I really enjoyed it. It was pleasantly emotionally engaging as well as really funny, so I highly recommend seeing it. I'm glad that a lot of people went out to go see it. Hateful Eight, incredible Tarantino film. I love it. More people should go see it next week, so that becomes number 2 next week. That would be amazing. And I mean, the rest of the box office, Sisters, it was okay. It was funny. It was like, you got the Will Ferrell, Mark Wahlberg, you got, Tina Fey, Amy Poehler, and they're really funny in it. I wish the material was a little bit stronger for them, because they're such a great duo when they're just letting it rip. I mean, those are the parts where I thought it was really funny, was when you could tell they're just ad-libbing and having fun. So,
Mark, what about you?
I'll tell you this: you should see Road Trip. No, you really shouldn't. No. And I think people are starting to come on it, but it is weird. I guess it's the only kids movie that's playing right now that's strictly kids movie. Maybe the PG-13 rating scares some parents away from Star Wars, that their kids aren't old enough to see Kylo Ren up close yet. But what surprises me is it's Star Wars. It's not how much money it's making, because I kind of expected that. It's that the theater count hasn't changed yet. It's still in all the theaters that it was when it opened. And you look at something like Hateful Eight, which, yes, it expanded to wide release, but a lot of theater chains weren't prepared for them to make that decision, so you didn't see it in as many theaters as you saw Daddy's Home, which is part of the reason why Daddy's Home did so well. But also, like, you're right, I think people are surprised that it's as good as it is. I haven't seen it yet, so I can't judge it. It looks like not that good of a movie. But then you also consider it's got Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg, 2 actors I really want to see be funny in a movie like this. So I think their names brought in people opening weekend. The fact that people seemed to enjoy it brought them back the next week.
One of the interesting things here, I don't know if the number of screens that Hateful Eight played in had much of a factor, because if you look at the per screen average,
right,
Daddy's Home made $8,600 per screen. Hateful Eight made $6,500 per screen. I think one of the bigger things that might have affected Hateful Eight not coming in as strong as we would have thought is that, remember, they weren't going to move it wide until this week. So I think there are probably some people out there that were expecting it not to be in theaters last week. They kind of jumped ahead and surprised everybody by putting out a little bit early. So I think that might have had a little bit of an effect. How big or how small, I'm not really sure, but I think that probably
And we all heard that last week when we were on the show, like midway through our box office predictions. It's like, oh, wait, Hateful Eight they moved up the release date. So we're like, oh, we got to throw it in there. We didn't really think that thing's through.
Well, the other reason it probably didn't make as much money is its running time. So they can't put in as many screenings of Hateful Eight as they can with Daddy's Home.
Right.
Daddy's Home is roughly about 90 minutes. Hateful Eight is roughly almost 3 hours. So it's almost double the length. So if it was 90 minutes, it would have made double the money.
But I don't know about that, because one of the issues, because it only made $6,000 is a good per screen average. But I mean, not compared to like Star Wars, which made $21,000 per screen. So it's not like it's selling out and they needed the extra shows.
Right.
Like they have shows and they have empty seats. So I think runtime is turning some people away. I know Ray won't go to see a movie if it's more than 92 minutes.
Well, I just mean you can't cram as many shows in.
Right,
so.
but because the per screening average is so low, I don't know if adding more showtimes would have made that much of a difference because it's not like they're selling out.
30% more, I think.
We'll see.